upon my guides, my ancestors, both my grandmothers, Rilla, Ruth Wolfley, and Verdine. I'm coming to you tonight on the full moon in Taurus, in the season of Scorpio, November 13th, 2019, to talk about witches. What is a witch? We've all heard of the witch trials, the Salem witch trials, but there were trials before that in Europe, before colonization of the Americas. Women were persecuted for practicing, for worshiping the divine in their own way without the need for a doctrine or a church or a religion. Women were persecuted for worshiping the trees, for healing their family, for working with herbs to nourish their bodies and their children, for birthing babies, for being wise, intuitive teachers, counselors, healers. And not only that, but when women were put on trial as witches, they were encouraged to give the names of other witches, women. And so mistrust became the norm among women. Witches who were put on trial were often burned at the stake. They had their tongues cut out sometimes. They had their entire bodies shaven clean. Their families were put on trial. They were hung. And the witch trials that happened in Europe and then later in the US and that are still happening today in some parts of the world have left a really thick residue on our culture today in 2019, worldwide. But I'm speaking from the US, from California. We live in a system that profits off of the shrinking of women. This system profits off of keeping women small, of holding our voices back and making us feel like we have to be perfect before we speak our truth, like it can't be messy, and like we have to alter our bodies, like we have to alter every part of our bodies, whether it's shaving, whether it's putting on makeup, whether it's taking the fat away. Is what it feels like a punch in the gut. And I'm sick and tired of it. I'm waking up to my witchiness, and I've been afraid to speak openly about being a witch. This word witch was given to women. It was not something that groups of women would use on their own. It was a derogatory term given to women by the Christian church, I believe. And now we're reclaiming the word witch. We're reclaiming the word witch. When I walk in the trees alone, when I have my bare feet in the ground, sometimes I'm afraid. I'm afraid of walking through the park barefoot because I get weird looks. I'm afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of connecting to the earth. This is not a coincidence, because women were persecuted for connecting to the earth. Women were persecuted for their connection to the trees and the plants and the flowers and the animals and to each other. So no wonder so many of us are afraid of nature. And no wonder so many of us feel like we don't belong. Because when witches were persecuted, we had to rat out other women and accuse them of witchcraft. So it makes sense. It makes sense that so many of us feel like we don't belong, or we can't find our home, our community, our coven. This is how I felt for a long time. For a really long time. And I felt like I have a noose around my throat, like I can't speak freely. Like I practice my witchcraft in secret with a few sisters who are on the same page as me. And then even there, I feel like I'm holding back. But this past weekend, I had a really powerful ceremony with a group of witchy women, and seeing them step fully into their witchiness, seeing them really feel into the pain of their ancestors, believe in this connection to source, and find it through the trees, through the plants, through the food, through the medicine, through each other. That has inspired me to own my own witchiness and to step into this word and this path. And I've always been afraid of being called crazy, and I have been called crazy a lot. But I've been a master pretender, a master hider, a master at oscillating between worlds, a master at closing out whatever connection I feel to my power, to source, a master at masquerading my deep connection to the earth. And I'm over it. But this fear, this feeling of being burned for speaking my truth, burned metaphorically, being shamed for coming out and saying, oh, I connect with the trees. Oh, I'm an intuitive, empathic woman. People laugh at that sometimes, a lot of the times. Or we are encouraged to be snapped back into the mind, into the fast-paced culture that we live in. And so little by little, we learn to take all of that back into us, to not speak about our gifts, to not speak about our empathetic, wise, knowing natures. And I've been doing this for so long. I've been trying to fit in with people who don't see or believe or feel as deeply as me, at least right now. And I've been, the fear of being called crazy, it's deeper than that. It's the fear of being put in a mental institution. It's because I have so many sisters, ex-lovers, brothers who are or have been in mental institutions because of having visions, because of being depressed, because of sensing energy, because of being anxious, because of being who they are and feeling the heaviness of this world, feeling their ancestral lineages coming through them, or in a society or family that doesn't believe that there's anything outside of our physical existence in this realm. And it could have just as easily been me. And I feel so deeply for everyone whose gifts have been made to be seen as problems, and who've been made to fear their gifts. because there are so many parts of me that still fear mine. And as I've been filming this, there have been so many shifts because the camera I was filming on ran out of battery, and then when I plugged it in, the battery still wouldn't let me film, so now I'm on my phone. And this often happens when we try to share a truth. There are just things that inhibit us from getting there. And it's not a coincidence whether we want to believe that it's parts of ourselves that are afraid, that are creating all these obstructions for us to share a truth, or that there are forces at play that are putting things in the way of us sharing our truth. Whatever it is, women in particular have a lot of blockages to sharing their truth. And getting back to that piece around shame and fear and burning, when we share a truth and it comes out messy, or we offend someone, or we get something a little bit off base, the first reaction tends to be to burn that person, to shame them, to call them out, not in, to completely ostracize and demonize them. So of course we're afraid to share our truth, because we don't want that. We want to belong. We want to fit in. We want approval, because that's a basic instinct, that desire to be part of the pack. That used to mean life or death. If we don't belong, then we die, is what it used to mean. And so I challenge us all, and myself included, to refrain from burning anyone for sharing their truth, but especially to refrain from shaming and burning any woman from sharing their truth. We can call each other in towards deeper understanding and connection, but to completely cut someone out or demonize them because they said something that may have been off base, that just fuels that fear of sharing our truth, and it fuels our separation. And that separation is a product of the patriarchy. Capitalism wants to keep us pitted against each other, wants to keep us fighting. But there's so much beauty in connecting and in coming out with who we really are. And that's what I'm doing right now. I am a wise, intuitive teacher, counselor, healer who has gifts to connect with the earth and with the divine and hold space, and whose body is really cyclical in nature, whose menstrual cycle is connected to the tides and connected to the moon, and whose emotions roll and rage and soar and fly and and that's the other thing, that I can make a video starting off really serious and intense, and then find laughter and joy and silliness and sweetness and softness, and there's no bar on my emotions. There's no cage around what I can or cannot feel as a woman. And so many women who are called crazy have these wild emotions that go from being numb to enraged to grieving to giggling to being mischievous or silly or being sensual, and all of these aspects of us make up who we are. And this goes for everyone, whether or not you're a woman, a man, whatever gender identity you have. We all have these emotions that we ride the waves of. But for people who have wombs in particular, there is this special connection to the tides and the moon. And this is really real. This is really real. Yeah. And so I wanted to create this video today to come out about who I am and to say, let's stop the hiding. I know it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard to stop the hiding. the fear can be there, feeling like there's no one to connect with, like the crazy, the fear of the crazy, the fear of the crazy, the fear of the crazy. But it feels amazing to speak out about who I am and all of my messiness and my goo and my rolling emotions. And yeah, thank you for listening. And I encourage you to share this, to talk about your witchiness, to talk to me about your witchiness or anyone if this woke something up in you. And I wanted to point out a few great books. Witch by Lisa Lister, so good. I was reading it right before this video, and it really inspired me to speak out. Burning Woman by Lucy H. Pearce. Caliban y la Bruja by Silvia Federici, or Caliban and the Witch, Silvia Federici. Witches, Midwives, and Nurses. I think that's the order it's in. Yeah, Witches, Midwives, and Nurses. I don't have the... by Deirdre English and some other person. I'll leave the names of these books down in the description, though. Yes. Those 4 books in particular have... they provide some good history and also some, like, waking up power. Yeah. So that is that. And also a lot of my, like, waking up this weekend happened with a wonderful woman named Briana Cavion, who does some really cool witchy work as well. So I'll put all of these names down in the description. Thank you so much. Please step into your witchiness. The world needs us right now. The world needs us. We're here to turn things around and to step into our power and create a world that is not fueled off of fear, but off of love. Thank you.